The story takes place about a miserable old man named Ebenezer Scrooge on Christmas Eve. He and his clerk, Bob Cratchit, sit in their anteroom shivering because Scrooge refuses to spend money on heating coals for a fire. Scrooge's nephew, Fred, pays his uncle a visit and invites him to his annual Christmas party. Two gentlemen also drop by and ask Scrooge for a contribution to their charity. Scrooge treats them foully and says, "Bah humbug," in response to his nephew's Merry Christmas. Later that evening, Scrooge returns to his apartment and he receives a visit from the ghost of his dead partner, Jacob Marley. Marley looks ragged and has heavy chains weighing him down as a punishment to his spirit because of his greed and self-serving nature in his life. Marley hopes to save Scrooge from sharing the same fate. Marley informs Scrooge that three spirits will visit him during each of the 3 nights. Soon, Scrooge falls into a deep sleep. He wakes up moments before the arrival of Ghost of Christmas Past. This ghost is a strange childlike phantom with brightly glowing head. Scrooge and the ghost go on a journey into the past to the previous Christmases from his earlier years. Invisible to those he watches, Scrooge revisits his childhood school days with his apprenticeship with a happy merchant named Fezziwig, and his engagement to Belle, a woman who leaves Scrooge because his lust for money eclipses his ability to love another. Scrooge, deeply moved, sheds tears of regret before the phantom returns into his bed. Then, the next spirit comes. The ghost of Christmas Present, which is a majestic giant clad in green fur robe, takes Scrooge through London to unveil Christmas later that year. Scrooge watches the large Cratchit family prepare a miniature feast in their tiny home. He then sees Bob Cratchit's crippled son, Tiny Tim, a courageous boy whose kindness warms Scrooge's heart. The ghost and Scrooge then travel to Scrooge's nephews to witness the Christmas party. He sees them having a blast and asks the ghost if they could stay until it was over. As the day passes, the spirit gets noticeably older. At the end of the day, he shows Scrooge two starved children, ignorance and want, living under his coat. The spirit disappears, and then Scrooge notices a black hooded person coming towards him. The ghost of Christmas yet to come, or future, takes Scrooge to an unnamed man's recent death. Scrooge sees businessmen discussing the dead man's riches, some people trading his personal items for cash, and a poor couple expressing relief at the death of their unforgiving creditor. Scrooge pleads and demands to know who the dead man was. Scrooge finds himself in a churchyard with a spirit pointing to a grave. Scrooge looks at the headstone and is shocked to read his own name. Scrooge breaks down saying how much he wants to change his ways and fate. He begs and begs and then suddenly appears in bed again in Christmas morning. Scrooge, now filled with enormous joy, runs out into the streets cheering "Merry Christmas." He sends a giant Christmas turkey to the Cratchit house and attends Fred's party. Years go by and he stays true to his promise and honors Christmas with all of his heart. He treats Tiny Tim as if it were his own child, provides expensive gifts for the poor, and treats people with kindness and generosity. The end. According to Dictionary.com, a classic is defined as serving as a standard, model, or guide. A Christmas Carol is defined as a classic due to seemingly timeless themes throughout the novel and by Dickens's way of making the characters seem realistic. Other reasons include people's fascination with mystery and ghost stories and about second chances. It is also over 100 years old and people are still reading it and watching it in plays and movies today. The book was published in December of 1843. The story takes place in an early Victorian-era Britain. Dickens wrote the novel based on the humiliating experiences of his childhood, his sympathy for the poor, and various Christmas stories and fairy tales. Ebenezer Scrooge's dual personalities were based off Dickens's father, a man who Dickens was ashamed of, but also saw a kind, loving person on the inside. The Cratchits were based off the poor era Dickens lived in, and Tiny Tim was made because of Dickens's tour of local tin mines and the growing number of poor children around the area at the time. The ghosts were created most likely from the adventure Dickens took to penitentiaries like the one in Pittsburgh he visited, hearing the stories of spiritualism, fairy tales, and nursery stories. The 1984 movie version of A Christmas Carol is pretty related and spot on with the book. Although the Ghost of Christmas Past is a woman played and not a child. Other than that, only few minor details alter the story. The 1984 version is hailed as one of the only versions that stayed true to the book.
Mr. Cratchit!
Here, sir.
Do you know what time it is?
Yes, sir.
What time is it?
18 minutes past the hour, sir.
18 and a half minutes past the hour. What do you mean, coming here this time of day?
I'm sorry, sir. I am behind my time.
Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you will, please.
It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday.
Well, I'll tell you, my friend, I'm not going to stand for this any longer. Therefore, I am going to double your salary.
Double my salary, sir?
Yes, Bob. A Merry Christmas to you. I'll double your salary for a start, and I'll endeavor to assist your family in any way I can. And Tim will walk again and grow stronger and stronger upon my life. He will. Well, we'll discuss the particulars this afternoon over a Christmas bowl. Well, what's the matter with you?
Nothing, sir. Well, it's just that... Nothing. Thank you, sir.
My good fellow, make up the fire before we freeze to death. Buy some more coal before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Yes, sir.
Ebenezer Scrooge was better than his word. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the old city knew. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. It was said of Ebenezer Scrooge that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one.